Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. QuestionPro plus iBeacon will be starting in just a moment. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great lineup. We're really excited about today's content. QuestionPro plus iBeacon. We're going to have a great conversation about hyperlocal surveys and research, and we're going to get it kicked off in just a minute. So just a few pieces of housekeeping. The session today is going to run an hour. For everyone who is registered, we'll provide the recording plus some extra handouts at the end. So watch for an email from us after we wrap up here. And we have three panelists today, and so I'm going to turn it over to QuestionPro's CEO, Eric Cotto, in just a second, but I want to give you a quick reminder about comments. So we want this to be a dialogue. So please, as you have questions coming up, paste them into or type them into the comment thread, and we'll be able to pull those on the screen and share those with our panelists and get you answers immediately during the broadcast today. We'll take a break during the middle, and then we'll cover anything else that's come through at the very end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our CEO of QuestionPro, Mr. Eric Cotto. Welcome.
All right. Thanks a lot, James. Thanks for getting us started. Really excited to get going today. Let me first start by introducing my co-presenters today. We've got Jeffrey Henning with us. James, if you can flip the camera to Jeffrey. Really happy to have Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a veteran of the market research industry. He's been in survey software and market research for well over 20 years with Perseus and Bovisi, and is now the president of ResearchScape, which is a consultancy that helps clients strategize and execute better surveys so they can get the data they need and move forward with their projects. So very happy to have Jeffrey with us. He's a frequent contributor to Green Book, Research Access, writes a lot on market research, and I think has been writing about iBeacon for over a year. So one of the first people out there that we saw writing about iBeacon. I also then have Chandika Bandari, also known as Chad. Really happy to have Chad with us. He's the CEO of Seattle App Lab, which is a Seattle-based development firm. They help clients strategize and execute on their development projects both on the web and mobile, iOS, Android, and more. Chad's a long-term veteran of the Seattle tech and startup scene, is a master of all things code. I've actually heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that Chad even dreams in PHP and that renders his dreams in HTML5. So anything relating to code, Chad's your man. Really happy to have him on the webinar today. And lastly, myself, I'm Eric Cotto, CEO of QuestionPro. We are Seattle-based survey software provider. We've been in the business over 10 years. And our mission in life is really to make survey software easy, to take the technology out of the picture so that our clients can focus on running surveys and making better decisions. Over the last few years, we've invested a lot of time and energy into mobile offerings. We have a great QuestionPro app, put a lot of effort into mobile optimized surveys, and I'm really excited today to launch our latest mobile offering, QuestionPro and iBeacon. I'm going to tell you all about this. From my perspective, I think iBeacon is really going to not only revolutionize the way location-based surveys are done, but really in a broader context, how location-based marketing and interactions are going to be done. This is not a technology that is limited in scope just to research. So whether you're a researcher, a marketer, no matter what really your mission is, I think there's some real great insights in today's webinar about how iBeacon and other location-based technologies are going to change the way we interact with companies, with our brands, with devices. So to start, I want to kick it off. James, if you could flip to the next slide for an agenda. Introductions we did. Next slide. So Jeffrey's going to talk through mobile research trends and technology. He's going to tell us a little bit about iBeacon technology and its impact on research. I'll walk you through QuestionPro and our iBeacon integration. Then we'll wrap up with Chad, who's going to go into some integration technical details and walk us through a case study of a client that he worked with. So without further ado, let's get started with Jeffrey.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric. So wanted to talk about mobile research sort of in context. So Green Book about twice a year does this study called GRIT, Green Book Research Industry Trends, and I usually help them analyze parts of the data that relate to survey modes, research modes. And we've been tracking for a long time emerging techniques as they come along. We've added wearables research, for instance, which 7% of people say they're using and 24% say they're considering. So we try to track things from very early days. And it's almost to the point where we really can't talk about mobile surveys anymore as an emerging method because this really was the year of mobile surveys. I think it's been the year of mobile surveys in 2006 and 2007 and 2008. But in 2014, we now have the majority of researchers having done mobile surveys. So 64% have done them, and you can see another 26% are contemplating them. So it's really crossed over into the mainstream. So now that it has crossed over to the mainstream, we're looking for new uses and new applications for it. James, if we go to the next slide. So there's been a lot of literature out. 2 books have been released just this summer. The Handbook of Mobile Market Research is from SMR and Wiley. It was written by Ray Pointer, a noted writer, does the new MR group of webinars and festivals. Naveen Williams and Sue York collaborated on it. It's a great sort of textbook looking at everything you need to know about mobile, whether it's mobile quant, mobile qual, looking at passive research on using mobile devices, the ethics involved in mobile research. So I highly recommend that you pick that up if you're interested in mobile. And then a new book that's come out is by Edward Appleton. So he's a European Consumer Insights Manager, and he basically did a series of IDIs, in-depth interviews with players in the industry, and wrote them up into a book that you can buy electronically or through Lulu. So there's been a lot of research on the shape of this market, and so I encourage you to pick those up. Now, one of the reasons mobile research is so important and is because when we do traditional surveys, one of the things we tend to gloss over is that respondents are forgetful. For instance, there's a common question, what hotel brands have you stayed at in the past year? Trying to remember all of the hotel brands that you stayed at in the past year is probably tough. You probably think you know, but if you went back and actually compared it to your records, you'd find that you were wrong. And you can think about other cases where you're asking people to look back. So Revelation presented a case study on snack food, and asking people after the fact, a week or two, why did you buy that bag of chips from the aisle? It's hard for people to remember everything. And so not only is it hard to remember, but there's different biases that interfere with this. One of my favorites is the peak end effect. So when you think of an experience, people tend to remember the best part of it, the peak, and how it ended. And so there was some fascinating research in terms of changing the end of a hospital stay, and by basically improving the end, the checkout process, streamlining it, people's perception over the overall hospital stay dramatically went up, when really all that had been changed was kind of reducing the paperwork at the end. The fading effect bias I'm going to talk about in a minute, and then the egocentric bias, we're thinking about things through our own lens. Context effect. If I ask you, why did you buy that bag of chips? But when you went to get that bag of chips, you walked through the cereal aisle. You have no memory of the cereal aisle. You weren't paying attention to it because you were looking for that chip. The context was, the snacks you were buying. So you've lost all of this information because it wasn't relevant at the time. So being able to do surveys in the moment on mobile devices helps remove these memory biases from the research process. James? I want to give two examples of sort of removing that bias. So the first is from Forbes Research. They did a case study for Dunkin' Donuts that they shared at a conference. And so at Dunkin' Donuts, they had so a franchise owner had two Dunkin' Donuts chains. When they did a traditional customer satisfaction survey afterwards, the ratings were about the same for both, and yet the performance of the two stores was dramatically different. One was really underperforming to the point where they had to think about, are we going to close this store? But when they did the traditional survey, it was not capturing anything that was wrong. So what they did instead was a mobile survey where people were using an app to just click on photos that the experience of shopping at that Dunkin' Donuts was evocative of. So here you have an example of sort of teamwork, a group of people, and you'd either click it, if it was applied, or there'd be a new image show up and you could decide to click it or not click it. What they found through that more emotion-oriented, in-the-moment technique was that the store that was doing very well, it had a higher emotional relevance to the people who went there. They were known by the clerk, by the cashier, and the people behind. They would often know their order and so forth. And there was an emotional connection. At the other location, there really was no emotional connection. There was no sense of teamwork or everybody knowing your name. And so while they were satisfied, they weren't emotionally connected to the store in the same way they were to this other store. And that was something that mobile research showed them. The other example here is from the clock is from Research Now. So Research Now would regularly profile members of their panels. Are you looking for a car in the next 3 months? And different things. And what they would find is that those profiling information would become out of date. So for their panel members who opted in to carry an app, they basically used geofencing, so tracking locations that they were at, and they tracked, did they go to a car dealer? Now, sometimes they might be going to a car dealer to get their car repaired. Other times they were going because they were thinking of looking at it for a new car. And so they were able to use that passive data collection to better target people who were shopping for cars for follow-on research, something that they were almost able to double the size of the panel of people who were interested in that through that passive collection. Okay. So what is iBeacon? The green plastic object there on the wall is an example of an iBeacon. They come in many different shapes and sizes. They're low-cost devices that can detect nearby mobile devices. They work on low-energy Bluetooth. The battery will last for years. It was developed by Apple and launched in mid-2003, but it works with any operating system, iOS, Android, Windows Mobile. So right now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of experimentation going on in the industry. So Macy's has installed iBeacon at the front of a number of stores. So when you walk into that store, there's a Shop Ticket app that registers the fact that you're in there and can give you some promotions for the day. And they're considering, so right now it's just that you've entered the building, and they're looking at some department by department use of iBeacons in the future. So you walk into the shoe department, you get a promotion on sneakers. Major League Baseball did a test at, it's not Shea Stadium anymore, it's Citi Field in New York, the Met Stadium. And so when you walk in, there's part where there's, if you have the app, you'll actually get sort of a vintage video of the history of the old Shea Stadium and the new field. If you're a first-time user, when you walk by the hot dog stand, you'll get a coupon for $2 off Nathan's. And there's different parts of the stadium that they've sort of configured with beacons that can recognize where you are and what you're doing, and if appropriate, offer you a promotion. So lots of experimentation going on. So how do we think iBeacon's going to transform research? We're definitely in the very early days of this. Sriram Subramanian gave a presentation earlier this year at the Marketing Research Association's conference, Insights and Strategy, where he talked about his own research into iBeacon. He does a lot of patient research. He was applying it to that, but he also kind of painted the big picture. And he said really what's valuable about iBeacon is you can measure the moment of truth. So the point in an experience that makes or breaks the decision of the relationship. So rather than having to ask about that moment of truth a week later, a month later, 3 months later in a tracker, you can capture it when it's most in people's minds, least subject to memory bias. You're going to get the more accurate information. So lots of applications that we're thinking about. The early ones, the sort of low-hanging fruit, are obviously shopper insights. I had mentioned that snack study. So that was a revelation study for Tostitos that they presented at an SMR conference, where getting those insights in the moment was much more relevant than people's recollection of that. So there's been a lot of behavioral economics research about how when people are in a hot state or emotional state, they're different than they are when they're in a colder, irrational state. And making that impulse decision to buy a bag of Tostitos, mobile research really helps them better understand that. Traveler insights, so you can imagine a lot of airlines have apps that they've already installed, so instrumenting these apps with iBeacon tracking so that you can be capturing different aspects of their travel experience. Event feedback, such as MLB, NFL is also doing some experimentation with that. I also think there's a lot of conference apps, so nowadays you go to the conference, and rather than having the printed brochure, you have an app that you're using. Makes sense to instrument that app with iBeacon tracking to know, which after the fact, which sessions were most attended, for instance, where there might be a backup in food services. So food services is a client of mine where they provide cafeteria-style services, multiple locations in an office building, and to better track and understand people's usage of that relating to facilities management. So there's lots of new applications that we can think about for iBeacon, including some that perhaps you're thinking about relevant to your own research. As you can imagine, there's a lot of challenges to this. One of the things is we want to be relevant, not annoy. I think if you're in an entertainment complex like a baseball stadium, getting some push notifications of different things that's happening, you're probably more receptive to that than when you're going to the grocery store and you're trying to get some items on your list. So you don't want to do too many push notifications. I really think passively noticing things so that you can then follow up with an email survey or follow up, an hour or 2 hours later, still gives you, very good recall while not constantly annoying people. Once you have a large enough app installed base, you don't need to do that for everyone. You can gate it by doing random sampling so that people aren't being overwhelmed by these. The challenge is going to be you're going to be competing with the marketing department of your organization that's going to want to be pushing out discounts and deals when you're going to want to be measuring research. And so as long as those are relevant, people will be happy to get them, but they can easily become spam. So any mobile survey, you got to think about best practices. The survey needs to be short, needs to be mobile responsive, is mobile optimized questionnaire design, as Eric mentioned at the beginning, that they've done with QuestionPro. You want fewer open-ended questions because it's harder to type those on web keyboards or on the mobile screen keyboards, so you're going to get shorter responses.
All right, well, great. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Great kind of survey overview, if you will, of what's happening in mobile market research. We certainly see a lot of interest on the mobile market research side. Some of the things we observed is higher response rates coming in from mobile devices. We're seeing right now on our, kind of across all of our users, 10 to as high as 30%, 15 to as high as 30% of responses coming from mobile devices. So as a segment of our survey traffic, it's shot up fantastically over the last really 3 to 4 years. So certainly a very hot space. James, I know we wanted to pause for questions. Do we have anything coming in? Any questions for Jeffrey on the researcher's perspective or the trends perspective?
Well, I think that the one question that's come in has been more generally, and I know we'll get to this, so I just wanted to mention it, is what is the solution that we're talking about, so to speak? So we've laid the foundation here with Jeffrey's input, and so I think that's the question now is, what are we talking about here?
Great question. So what do you actually do with this, right? You got your iBeacon, it's stuck to the wall.
Exactly.
How do you make use of that thing? Okay, great. Well, let me jump in that case, and James, if we can get the presentation back up, and go forward a slide. So when we were developing this product, we ran a survey against a group of consumers, mostly US-based, although there's a number of countries around the world represented. We wanted to find out a little bit of what people thought about surveys on their mobile devices and why you take it, why you wouldn't take it. So just wanted to share with you a few key findings here that helped us inform our thinking as we developed this. So next slide, please, James. So would you participate in a mobile survey? Top level question, surprise, surprise. 87% of our survey respondents said yes, they're willing to participate in a mobile survey. We've seen this before in our data set, so it confirmed it. I think the number was probably even a little higher than we expected, but a real receptivity to participating in surveys on a mobile device. Next question, James. So why would you participate? This was actually a little more insightful. The number one reason why people would participate in a survey on their mobile device was to get something of value in return. So I think coupons, gift cards, discounts, that relating back to that in the moment research. Another interesting finding here, we asked a number of options. We found that people were more likely to respond to a survey on their mobile device if they were happy with the experience than if they were upset, which I think ran a little counterintuitive to me. I think generally when people are upset, they're more likely to voice their opinion. But I think it's an interesting takeaway for retailers, anyone in the hospitality service industry, that what we've seen is actually a greater appetite to provide feedback if you're happy. So next slide. Would you respond to a push notification? This becomes important when you're looking at surveys delivered through an app, which is what our iBeacon solution is. So we found a generally very high likelihood to participate on a survey delivered through a push notification. If anyone doesn't know what a push notification is, it's that little text message looking thing that comes from an app on your phone, and it says, Facebook, you just received a new message, or you got an update through Twitter. So those things are all called push notifications. We've got screenshots of those later on in this presentation if anyone's unclear, but an appetite to respond. So next slide, James. Why would you not respond to a mobile push notification? What we wanted to really drill into is what Jeffrey was saying earlier. Where could this go wrong? Content is not relevant was the number one reason. And I think we've all experienced this probably on our mobile devices, and it bears probably even more true for conducting research, for asking someone to participate in a survey. It has to be relevant. So just a few high-level findings. For me, the real takeaways here were there's a real appetite for this from a consumer side. They're willing to participate, but you have to offer them something. There has to be the incentive, the alignment, and you have to be relevant. So, and I think the iBeacon offers the potential for both of those. So if you could go next slide. So yeah, back to the question, what actually is this thing you guys are talking about? So QuestionPro plus iBeacon. So our integration, it will integrate with any existing mobile app. And I want to make this clear, this is a technology that relies on a mobile app as its foundation. So QuestionPro will very easily integrate into an existing mobile app that you have for your retail store, for your conference, for your event, for your facility, whatever that is, and allow you to deploy any survey in your QuestionPro account. So we, with this technology, allow you to deliver targeted push notifications to, in this example we're showing here, to a shopper. So when someone enters the men's department, you can ask them to take a survey. You can target these push notifications based on location and based on time. And this is one of the things I think is really cool about this. If, let's say they pass an end cap for a promotion, you can set the actual physical range they are away from that end cap. So if you're 20 feet away from that end cap, you're probably not looking at that. You might even be in another aisle. So we can say when someone walks within 5 feet or 3 feet of the end cap, then push the survey. So you get really amazing control over space using the iBeacon integration. And similarly, based on time, it can say if someone has loitered at that end cap for over 2 minutes making a decision, then let's push the survey, not when they first see it, but let's wait. Or we can, as is shown in the diagram here, when they're exiting the store. How was your shopping experience today? After. One of the things we found in our research is people were most likely to provide survey feedback immediately after an experience. And the rate at which they said they would provide feedback immediately after an experience versus 1 hour later was significantly higher immediately after. So again, the time targeting allows us to target to the experience immediately. Next slide, James. Incentive and actions. We saw this. The nice thing about the integration is it works with everything else you have in your QuestionPro account. So we've developed an API to deliver gift cards. And so with QuestionPro, at the end of the survey, you can deliver a live gift card code from over 30 major retailers or a virtual Visa that can be used anywhere immediately at the end of the survey. So you take the survey, and right there on their device, they have a live gift card code that we can redeem for them. Similarly, you could do custom coupons. So that kind of answers this question, why would someone do this? To get something in return. We also have a great social ratings integration. So if you have a restaurant, some hospitality facility, and getting ratings on Facebook or Yelp or Twitter is really important to you, you can take our star rating question and immediately push that rating they gave you out to Yelp, for example. And lastly, you can trigger real-time notification. So if someone is unhappy, the manager in that department could get an email as soon as the user completes that survey. And then there you have someone who's just completed a survey. You have a manager who's standing perhaps a few feet away from them and could respond via email. Of course, you won't actually know who that person is physically, but you can get their contact information through the survey as well. So. The next slide, thank you. So one of the things with the integration that, it does require some work on your app, and we understand this is difficult. Anytime that you have development work that needs to be done, there's a certain amount of overhead. Now, the initial integration, as Chad will talk about, is fairly easy. It's something that's done in less than a day. But let's say you needed to edit a survey question, or you even wanted to change the survey entirely. You can do all of that without another app release. So our goal here, again, is to kind of take technology out of the picture to do as little app releasing as possible. You can even add new iBeacons to your store. So if you've had great success with iBeacons you've placed in the men's department and the women's department, it's very easy to add a new iBeacon to, say, the home furnishings department. So you don't have to push out a new app release. Anyone who's kind of pushed something through the Apple App Store or the Android App Store knows that there's a certain amount of overhead to get something through there. So we want to take that out of the equation as much as possible. Okay, James. Then on the backside, analysis and segmentation. This is, of course, one of the reasons we do this is, to get better data. So each beacon ID is uniquely passed back to QuestionPro. Additionally, we can pass extra customer data back to QuestionPro. So, for instance, how long after they receive the push notification did it take them to actually answer the survey? Device data. So, and then all of the analysis is integrated with our existing report suite, and you can segment and look at performance by the actual beacon location. So in this case, we're showing just a Net Promoter Score question, and you can look at that by people who took the survey in the men's, women's department, or home furnishings, just a very simple example. You can, of course, do segmentation by time and trend these results over the time. So really try to integrate this in with our existing report suite. So that's just a little bit about the solution. I think we'll probably have a handful of questions, about the solution, about the integration. But I want to hold on that for just a minute because Chad's going to take us into a little bit of greater detail on not only the integration, but some details about how iBeacon actually works, and look at a case study with one of his clients that he's worked with. So if I could hand it over to you, Chad, and we'll look at some real-world information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. James, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I'm going to talk about how we used QuestionPro iBeacon SDK to integrate with one of our customers' apps and really solve a cool scenario for them. Before we do that, though, let's understand how iBeacons work in a little bit more detail. So to understand iBeacons, you need to understand the trend in Bluetooth technology over time. So the the precursor to Bluetooth 4.0 was Bluetooth 2.1. Bluetooth 2.1 has been known in the industry to use up a lot of power, so it was not really useful for mobile scenarios. Although it has been used in mobile scenarios, it does take up a lot of power, so it tends to drain battery usage on the mobile phones. So that is the reason why organizations like Apple came up with this program called MFI, which stands for Made for iPhone or Made for iPod, I think. Just so that they could give a stamp of approval saying, hey, it does take up a lot of power, it does drain a lot of battery, but it doesn't kill your phone in 5 minutes. So Bluetooth 2.1 was the last version, and Bluetooth 4.0 is the new version, which essentially is also called BLE and also called Bluetooth Low Energy. So it was built for mobile scenarios in mind, and as part of the protocol, Bluetooth BLE devices have a discovery mechanism built into the protocol. So what that means is devices can broadcast their presence to any receiving devices, and in this case, it would be a mobile operating system, for example, your iPhone or your Android or a Windows phone. Bluetooth LE is definitely a more efficient way of using your phones to connect with devices that are out there that basically give you a pretty amazing control over locations, especially indoors, which we're going to talk about in a bit. iBeacons are built on top of BLE. iBeacons have special identification properties that they broadcast that the mobile operating systems look for. So those properties are UUID, which is Universally Unique Identifier. You can use a bunch of tools to come up with those. They're meant to be statistically unique. Doesn't have to be 100% unique as long as it's unique enough, and it's fairly easily changeable. So you can also configure the UUID on the beacons pretty easily. The next major properties for identification that iBeacons have is a field called major version and also a minor version. Major version is a number, a numeric field that goes from 1 to 65,000, and so is minor version. So you can imagine a scenario, if you are target, for example, and you wanted to basically have under target you would basically have UUID equal to target's unique ID, and then within target you can have 65,000 major version numbers and then 65,000 minor version numbers. So that basically makes it within an organization you can target 65,000 times 65,000. I don't even know how much that is. So it's a lot of devices that you can manage under one UDID. So what that means is that once you have your app with the UDID integrated, you almost don't have to make an update to say, hey, we have more devices installed. So it definitely makes it very easy. So the receiving implementations on the mobile operating systems have made it so that your apps don't have to be running. You also get notifications when your apps are locked, and that's very significant. And it's part of the OS in all the phones and tablets, actually. So iBeacons really are amazing little devices that enable a lot of cool scenarios. Next slide, please. iBeacon is not an NFC chip. NFC technology, although they are similar. NFC has optimal range of 2 to 4 inches. They can go up to 8 inches, but they're not good for anything beyond 8 inches. And they were specifically built to enable payment scenarios. Apple just came up with Apple Pay, I believe. Until the Apple Pay, Apple did not have support for NFC. I believe Apple Pay is actually built using NFC. Whereas GPS is, as we all know, we've used GPS while we're driving around. GPS is a location tracking technology that basically works off GPS satellites, and GPS satellites basically broadcast radio waves. It works really well while you're driving because you have a clear line of sight. But as soon as you enter a building, you simply won't get consistent results, especially when you have multiple floors or like radio waves, as some of you might know, don't really travel well within the walls. So GPS is, you can do geofencing with GPS outside of a building where you have a clear line of sight to the satellite, but you can't really do geofencing within a building or even multiple floors within a building. So that's where sort of iBeacon come into play. It's really to close the gap between what GPS provides and NFC provides. So iBeacons have a greater range than NFC and also work within the confines of a building. iBeacons have, depending on the manufacturer, have up to 70 meters, which is around 220 feet in range. And those ranges are obviously configurable in the sense that your app can decide the sensitivity of when you want to react to the discovery of presence of the beacons. Next screen, please. So QuestionPro Beacon SDK is a set of libraries that basically hook into your app, and they have made it very simple for you to use beacon technology along with the enterprise-grade research software that they have. They've also made it easy. They've already done the testing with a bunch of providers, and there's about, I think, 20 providers, and we looked at using 3 or so, and QuestionPro already had integrated with them. Contact.io, Estimote, and I think Radius Networks were the 3 providers that we looked at, and they already had researched that. They already had integrated it with, tested it with those devices from those manufacturers, and it was really easy for us to use. So the app integration itself took us, the design took us longer than that, obviously, but the app integration itself took us, less than a day, and we were off and testing within a day, essentially. So it's really, really helpful.
Hey, Chad,
yeah.
Chad, if I could just interrupt here. I think one of the interesting things to me when we first started looking at iBeacon is, although this was a standard developed by Apple, we should be clear, Apple itself does not make any iBeacon hardware. They're all made by third-party providers, like we're showing here. Estimote is one that we've used and really like. I think the biggest surprise to me was when we bought these things, how cheap they were.
Yes.
This kit, I was expecting these things to be a few $100s in iBeacon, and this kit was 3 iBeacons for $99.
And there are cheaper devices also out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really, very little kind of cost overhead in terms of getting this thing set up and running.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next slide, please. All right, so. So the integration that we did, so one of our customers, a nonprofit organization in Seattle, came to us, and so we did the apps for them, both Android and iPhone app, and they basically said, hey, we're basically hosting an event to showcase the work that we've done so far for our various causes that we support in 2014, and we want to kickstart the process of raising funds for 2015 as soon as we can. So that event basically had 15 sessions focusing on different causes that they were supporting, and they were expecting about 750 attendees. And one of the things that the event organizers did really well was to make sure that anybody that had qualifying Android or iPhone device, including tablets, had installed the app. So that was key before we could actually take advantage of the integrations that we did. So the goal was to get feedback right after the completion of the sessions, but not right after in the sense that we wanted to give folks time to gather and socialize and ask questions with the speakers, or just kind of generally socialize. And then the next goal was to gather soft pledge for donation and provide their contact information if they were interested in donating for the cause that was just talked about in the session. The next slide, please. So, so what we did to solve that problem is we decided that we're gonna fence a beacon fence. I don't know if it's even called geofence really. So we decided to make a beacon fence in the rooms that had the sessions. So we placed the beacons right at the center of the room with a 20-meter radius, which basically meant 60 feet circumference. So so as participants came in, we would record the entry event, and obviously we know that the participant is in the room as long as they have not exited the region. So then we created a survey that had a dynamic lookup table with QuestionPro, and that basically allowed us to figure out, based on time and the UDID and the major version and minor version of the beacon, to discover which session that they were just attending. So, so when the sessions were done, we would basically wait for the participant to get out of the room. Then, if the participant had stayed in the session for at least 30 minutes, you know, we would basically pop up a notification, send a local notification to ask them for feedback. And survey had 4 questions. 3 questions were related to the session itself, and then the 4th question was, hey, would you like to donate for this particular cause? And we got pretty good results out of it. I'm told that 60% response rate is really good, and you know, our customers were very happy. And more importantly, our customers were able to get contact information for folks that said that they did want to donate. You know, when I think about the integration that we did, if we were to do the integration ourselves, you know, like with existing technology, for example, right, before the iBeacons actually came into play, there was no way that we could wait for 5 minutes, or we could wait for somebody to go away like 20 feet away from a particular room before we could send a push notification. We could send a push notification at the end of the session, you know, based on time. You know, we could just send it from the server somehow, but we could not ever, so far, send a notification indoors where somebody has left the room and is 20 feet away and then pop up the notification. So for us, you know, the fact that we were able to match the requirement from the customer, where they said, hey, you know, we don't want it to be in the face right after the session. We want them to socialize a little bit, you know, get the experience, and then get out, you know, then do it like 5 or 10 minutes later when they're outside the zone. Is what it enabled us to do, and you know, we are really excited about this technology and other feedback scenarios with the QuestionPro SDK. So with that, I will pause for questions. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Chad. Really interesting case study, and yeah, pretty amazing results. Excited to have you guys kind of share that with us, and really kind of one of the first really cool implementations we've seen of it. So great job on that, and thanks for sharing today. James, can we take questions?
Yeah, we have quite a few questions, some great questions from the audience. One thing I wanted to highlight here, it was mentioned, it was something that Jeffrey mentioned in one of his articles as well, but how do we handle this when Bluetooth is not turned on, no notifications? So you have to tell people to turn it on if they're on their mobile, or how will that work?
Yeah, good question. I believe, unfortunately, I don't have an iPhone 6. You know, one of these days I will. I think that the new iPhone 6s are coming with Bluetooth enabled. I'd have to confirm that. But you know, my basic opinion on this is Bluetooth was defaulted off because of the battery issues with Bluetooth 2.0. We can expect that to change, particularly with Bluetooth Low Energy. Chad, I don't know if you confirmed that the iPhone 6 is defaulted on, but you know, I think this is something that is certainly an adoption issue at this point. But I think as we look into the future, it's a non-factor, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. That was from Todd. Thanks, Todd Dennison, for that question. Taylor had a number of questions here. He mentioned people will participate in a survey, but that may not be the first focus of them in their shopping experience may not be to take a survey. They're more focused on product information. So how do you kind of, and this I think goes a little bit back to Jeffrey's comments too, how do you balance between research and marketing, and how do you make sure you're giving them relevant information that's not interrupting them too much from the shopping experience?
Yeah, I think that's why the challenge is going to be the competition with marketing. And so the Macy's article that talked about their case study, one of the things they want to do in the future is actually offer product information. So they see you're in front of a particular part of an aisle, and give you information to help you pick the right product. So definitely, I think the challenge for researchers is the fact that we're competing with the marketing departments for the use of this app. I would think that as people become more used to, if the app is proving value, I'm one of those first people who, if I'm shopping for something, there are times I'll check the Amazon reviews, even though I'm in a store. And so as we sort of get used to, okay, now the store is giving me information, hopefully it's not a zero-sum game where if I'm using it for marketing, I'm not going to take the survey for it. Hopefully it'll be, I'm now more used to using my phone in the store, so therefore not only am I going to use it to look at the coupon, to look at product information, but also to provide feedback.
I have a comment. I have a comment to make to that also. So we're actually working on another implementation of iBeacon where marketing and research. I'm not a research expert, but to me, research is feedback. So feedback and like analyzing data after feedback. So we're basically implementing an app where it's a tablet app that's always running. And as you go through your shopping experience, you get notifications of deals and offers and product information as you get close to different aisles. And as you exit the store, you would get a feedback notification. So I think that marriage between marketing and research is kind of cool with iBeacon, if I understand right.
Yeah, Jashad, I think that's a great point, and we see that even within our business, where we have many of our clients would not call themselves professional researchers; they are marketers. So I think we see that, particularly on our side, that the worlds of research and marketing are meshing, and I think that's probably where a lot of the adoption will be. Is feedback just becomes part of the marketing mix in a way.
To quote a great movie, dogs and cats living together. Ghostbusters, anybody? Okay. All right, another great question is, what happens if they don't have time right then? So they get the survey notification. Is there a, ask me later reminder kind of thing? Or how would you handle that if they want to complete the survey but they don't have time right then?
Good question, Chet. I think that could be handled with I don't know if you accommodated that. I think that could be handled on the app side, certainly.
Yes.
With a reminder, right?
Yes. So both, in fact, all three operating systems, the major ones anyways, have this thing called local notification that basically is registered as a reminder on your phone. So that basically pops up even even when your app is not running. So kind of similar to how iBeacons kind of run without the app having to run also. So if the user says, hey, I don't want to take the survey now, you can actually register for a reminder at some point in the future. So that's a pretty standard feature of the mobile OS.
Okay, great. A question about, we mentioned rewards. We talked about the Tango Card integration. There's a question here, just referencing back to that, wanted to clarify this. We have many cards or many options for rewards, so will this, I think there's a little bit of confusion here, will this application replace all of those cards? So can we just speak to, Tango Card versus the QuestionPro plus iBeacon, just to clarify?
Oh yeah, good point. So there's really no relationship between the two. They're both independent features of QuestionPro. We integrate with these gift card providers, Amazon, Starbucks, and then a company called Tango Card, which is a multi-retailer gift card with over 30 retailers and 10 nonprofits. So you can choose to use that or not use that with iBeacon. So hopefully that kind of helps clarify.
Okay, great. Here's a great one from John. Thanks, John, for this question. Can iBeacons interface with more than one app? If I have a few iBeacons in my store and want to collect data from 2 different apps, will the iBeacon be able to recognize what app a consumer has on their phone and interface accordingly? Or are they hardwired to only interface with a single app designed just for that application?
Let me see if I can answer that question. So the question here is, can I multiplex a beacon, right? So if I have a beacon installed, can 2 apps collect data via that beacon?
Yep,
Yes,
that seems like what he's asking.
Yes, you can. So when you register for notification for beacons with the OS, you specify the UDID and the major version and the minor version. So if you use the same UDID for both the beacons and basically change them by major version and minor version, differentiate them with major and minor version, yes, you can. You can have 2 apps listen to the same beacon. That's not an issue at all.
Okay, great. A question specifically about the beacons themselves, the hardware itself. You mentioned a few brands that offer, or companies that offer the hardware. Is there a list of supported, or how do we know which devices are supported by this technology and by the QuestionPro integration?
Yeah, good question. So we do have the list of 3 that we've worked with. We do have full development support on this, part of our kind of full package of account management. So anyone looking to integrate with QuestionPro and iBeacon would have a dedicated account manager that will help them through. We do have a list. Estimote is the one, probably, I think it's, I think they're all good. I don't want to say one's better than the next, but it's the one we have the most experience with. So I would I would encourage you to speak with the account manager and just make sure whatever hardware you use is something that we've supported and tested.
Great. Kelly, thank you for this question. Can it pull customer data from my app through, such as customer name, loyalty program number, etc., to the QuestionPro platform?
Yes, they can be passed in as variables into the survey. That would be something that's integrated with the app, and it would pull the customer name, data, email address, and pass that into QuestionPro using the custom variables that we put. They can be encrypted as well. So there are obviously some privacy concerns with doing something like that, which we would specifically not have an opinion on. You need to make sure your users were okay with that. But that is a functionality that is available.
Okay, great. And then one more question here that came through. Do the apps, and this is something, Chad, you mentioned before, so if we could just clarify on this, do the apps run all day, or do you close the app when it's done? You mentioned works on lock screen, works when the app is closed, so can you just offer us a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so because the iBeacon implementation is actually done at the OS level, and then your app registers the fact that you're interested in listening to a particular beacon, you don't have to have the app running at the time you receive the notification from the beacon. So yes, so it doesn't have to run all the time. The app doesn't have to run all the time.
Yeah, for me that was another one of the aha moments about the iBeacon setup. Is the app doesn't have to be running. The OS actually has the ability to wake up the app and tell it to do something through iBeacon. Really cool in terms of the power of integrating something like that at the OS level, which is why one of the reasons why it's great developed by Apple is they can control all of this at the OS level. So really cool piece of the functionality.
Yeah, definitely. One final question here, and we're good on time. If there are any other questions, please send them in real quick, and we'll definitely get to them. Otherwise, we'll start to wrap up here. But do you have, Todd Dennison again asks, thanks Todd for the question, do you have any, do you need a specific type of account with QuestionPro to use this technology?
Yes, right now this is supported through our Team Edition account. So we'll have a contact email address at the end, but this would be something comes with the Team Edition account and does have the full account management and comes with the integration guide and dev support throughout that. So definitely get in touch with us, and we'd love to chat with you about the project.
Okay, great. Another quick question here. Do you have an SDK to provide us for integrating with your app? Do you have some APIs for interchange information? How does that work?
Yeah, Chad, maybe you could talk a little bit about your experiences using that.
Yeah, absolutely. So QuestionPro Beacon SDK is a library that works with Android, or your native Android app, or your iOS native app. and that's what we use to integrate for our customer.
Great. Well, thank you, esteemed panel. This has been excellent. We've gone deep, we've gone wide, we've gone far. Really enjoyed the conversation. I want to make an offer to anybody in the audience that if you have additional questions, please post them to the comment thread if they're general questions, or feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at ibeacon@questionpro.com. You can call us internationally. There's our phone number there. And if you haven't registered, there's a link on the event page. Please register for the event. If you found us some other way, please register, because we'll be emailing everyone a 2-page flyer PDF that will have additional information. It will recap some of this information, and we'll provide our contact information in there as well for everybody who registered today. So thank you very much. Any final comments or wrap-up things that any of the panel members would like to say?
Just want to say thanks to Jeffrey and Chandika. Really appreciate you guys joining us today. It was a good time.
It was a pleasure. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
That's great. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and wrap up now. Thank you for joining us today. QuestionPro plus iBeacon. We'll follow up with any additional questions in the comment thread, or feel free to email us, as I said, ibeacon@questionpro.com, or give us a call. I'll post those numbers as well in the email. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Oh, speaking of next time, please follow us on Google+, where this webinar is being streamed from, and we'll definitely keep you posted on new technology, new features that we offer, new content to help you conduct better research and be better marketers and make better decisions. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.